President Andrew Collins walked into the Grand Hall of the United Nations Security Council. The room was filled with representatives from countries around the world, all sitting quietly as they waited for him to speak. Cameras flashed, capturing every moment, while reporters scribbled notes furiously in anticipation of what he might say. No one knew exactly why this emergency meeting had been called, but rumors were swirling that it involved something big, something beyond Earth itself. Andrew stood at the podium, his expression calm but serious. He took a deep breath before beginning, his voice steady and clear. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, looking around the room, "today marks a turning point for humanity." His words hung heavy in the air. Some leaned forward, curious. Others exchanged nervous glances. Whatever he was about to say, it wasn't going to be ordinary. "For decades," he continued, "we have lived under the shadow of fear. Fear of forces we didn't fully understand. Aliens known as the Krylos have watched us, manipulated us, and interfered in our lives without permission. They've sown division among nations, destabilized economies, and drained our planet's resources, all while pretending to observe peacefully." He paused, letting his words sink in. Laura Bennett, a diplomat seated near the front, felt her heart race. She had suspected the president might address the Krylos issue, but she hadn't expected such direct confrontation. Around her, other delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This was uncharted territory. "But no more," Andrew declared, his tone firm now. "We will not stand by and let them treat us like subjects in some cosmic experiment. Today, I announce that humanity will take action. We are bringing the fight to their doorstep." A wave of murmurs swept through the room. Some gasped in shock, others whispered urgently to their neighbors. A few clapped hesitantly, unsure if this was bravery or madness. Andrew raised a hand to silence them. "This is not a decision made lightly," he said. "It comes after years of careful study and preparation. Thanks to advancements in technology and cooperation between nations, we now possess the means to defend ourselves and to strike back." Laura glanced at the faces around her. Many looked skeptical, even fearful. She couldn't blame them. Humanity had never faced an enemy like the Krylos before. Their ships could travel faster than light, their weapons were far superior to anything on Earth, and their motives remained shrouded in mystery. Was this truly the right move, or was it reckless? Still, there was something inspiring about Andrew's determination. He wasn't just speaking as a leader. He was speaking as a representative of every person on the planet. "History has shown us time and again that when humanity unites, we can overcome any obstacle," he said, his voice rising slightly. "Today, we face perhaps our greatest challenge yet, but together, we will prevail." As the speech ended, the room erupted into chaos. Reporters shouted questions, while delegates argued passionately among themselves. Laura stayed seated, her mind racing. She knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger. Yet, deep down, she also felt a spark of hope. If humanity truly could come together, maybe they stood a chance against the Krylos. Outside, news of the announcement spread quickly. People gathered in streets and living rooms, watching broadcasts of the speech. Reactions varied wildly. Some cheered, proud of their species' newfound defiance. Others protested, terrified of provoking a war they couldn't win. But one thing was certain, nothing would ever be the same again. The days following President Andrew Collins' announcement were chaotic. Across the globe, reactions poured in from every corner of society. In bustling cities and quiet towns alike, people gathered to discuss what this meant for their future. Some saw the president's declaration as a bold step toward protecting Earth, while others viewed it as a dangerous gamble that could lead to humanity's destruction. In New York City, journalist Daniel Harper stood amidst a crowd of protesters. Outside the White House, the scene was alive with energy signs waved high. Chants echoed through the streets, and emotions ran high. On one side, supporters held banners reading "Stand strong against the Krylos and protect our planet." They cheered loudly, proud of their leaders for finally taking action. On the other side, opponents carried signs like "Peace over pride" and "Don't risk our future." Their voices trembled with fear, warning that war with the Krylos would only bring ruin. Daniel moved through the throng, microphone in hand, interviewing individuals on both sides. A young woman named Maria spoke passionately about her support for the decision. "We can't just sit back and let them take everything from us," she said, her eyes fierce. "If we don't fight now, there won't be anything left for our children." Nearby, an older man named Robert shook his head in disagreement. "This is madness," he muttered, clutching his sign tightly. "They're more advanced than us. What makes anyone think we stand a chance? We should focus on finding peace, not starting a war." As Daniel recorded these conflicting perspectives, he couldn't help but feel torn himself. While part of him admired the courage behind the president's stance, another part worried about the cost such a conflict might exact. He knew one thing for sure: no matter how divided public opinion was, everyone agreed this moment would define humanity's place in the universe. Meanwhile, inside military bases across the United States, preparations were underway. General Samuel Hayes paced the command center, reviewing plans and strategies. His expression was grim, but determined, though he shared some of the public's concerns about facing an enemy far superior in technology. He also believed retreat wasn't an option. "If we don't act now," he told his officers during a briefing, "we'll lose control of our own destiny, and once that happens, it's over." Soldiers trained tirelessly, knowing full well the odds stacked against them. Among them was Captain Ryan Mitchell, a seasoned pilot who had flown countless missions. As he climbed into the cockpit of his fighter jet for yet another practice run, he thought about the enormity of what lay ahead. The Krylos weren't like any foe humanity had faced before. Their ships moved faster, hit harder, and seemed almost untouchable. But Ryan reminded himself of something his father used to say: "Sometimes you have to fight. Not because you know you'll win, but because you refuse to give up." Back home, families braced for uncertainty. Parents hugged their children tighter at night, wondering if tomorrow would bring safety or devastation. Teachers tried to reassure students, even as they grappled with their own fears. Conversations at dinner tables revolved around the same question: would humanity rise to meet this challenge, or crumble under its weight? Despite the tension, small acts of unity began to emerge. Neighbors helped each other stock supplies, churches and community centers opened their doors to host discussions, and volunteers signed up to assist wherever needed. Even in the face of fear, humanity showed glimpses of resilience. President Collins addressed the nation again, this time speaking directly to those who doubted his plan. "I understand your concerns," he said, his voice calm but firm, "but I ask you to trust that we are doing everything possible to protect our planet. This isn't about aggression, it's about survival. Together, we will face whatever comes next." As the sun set over Washington, D.C., casting long shadows across the city, the world held its breath. The stage was set, the lines drawn. Humanity had chosen its path, for better or worse. Now, all that remained was to see where it would lead. Laura Bennett sat in a dimly lit cafe near the outskirts of Geneva, Switzerland. Across from her was Dr. Emily Grant, a scientist who had spent years studying alien technology, recovered from crashed Krylos ships. The two women were old acquaintances, but this meeting felt different, more urgent. Outside, rain drizzled against the windows, muffling the sounds of passing cars and footsteps. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Emily leaned forward, glancing around to ensure no one was listening. Her voice was low, but steady as she began speaking. "Laura, what I'm about to tell you isn't public knowledge yet. Not even the president knows all of it." She paused, her eyes locking onto Laura's. The Krylos aren't just observing us. They're actively harming our planet. Laura frowned, her heart quickening. What do you mean? Emily pulled out a small tablet and tapped on it, bringing up images and data. Look at this, she said, sliding the device across the table. On the screen were graphs showing sharp declines in oceanic oxygen levels and atmospheric stability. They've been harvesting resources from Earth, pulling minerals from the oceans, extracting gases from the atmosphere. It's subtle, but it's accelerating. If they keep going like this, ecosystems will collapse within decades. Laura stared at the information, her mind racing. This was worse than she'd imagined. Why would they do that? What do they gain? That's the scary part, Emily replied, her tone grim. Based on the tech we've analyzed, it seems they're preparing for something bigger, something long-term. She hesitated, then added, I think they plan to colonize Earth once conditions here become uninhabitable for humans. A chill ran down Laura's spine. You mean, replace us? Emily nodded. Slowly. Exactly. And there's more. She opened another file on the tablet, revealing grainy footage taken inside a hidden Krylos outpost discovered beneath Antarctica's ice sheets. The video showed strange machines and tanks filled with glowing liquid. Floating inside the tanks were grotesque forms, half-human, half-alien creatures. Laura gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. What are those? She whispered, horrified. We don't know for sure yet, Emily admitted. But my team believes they're experiments. Attempts to blend human DNA with Krylos biology. Whatever their goal is, it's clear they see us as expendable. For a moment, neither woman spoke. The weight of the revelation hung between them, heavy and suffocating. Laura finally broke the silence. If this gets out, people will panic. Governments might collapse under the pressure. I know, Emily said quietly. That's why we need to act carefully. But we also can't ignore this. Humanity has to fight back not just for survival, but for our future. Laura nodded, determination hardening her features. Then we'll make sure President Collins understands the stakes. He needs to see this evidence. As they left the cafe, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and glistening under streetlights. Laura couldn't shake the image of those hybrid creatures from her mind. It wasn't just about defending Earth anymore. It was about stopping an invasion before it began. For the first time, she fully grasped the magnitude of what Andrew Collins had set into motion. War wasn't just inevitable. It was necessary. Over the next few days, Laura worked tirelessly to compile everything Emily had shared into a report. She included detailed analyses, visual evidence, and recommendations for immediate action. When she presented it to the president, he listened intently, his expression growing darker with each page. This changes everything, Andrew said, when she finished. If what you're saying is true, then we don't have a choice. We have to strike first and strike hard. Laura agreed, though her stomach churned with anxiety. Striking first meant escalating the conflict, possibly inviting retaliation sooner than expected. But doing nothing meant surrendering humanity's fate to the Krylos. As much as the idea frightened her, she knew Emily was right. Humanity had to stand its ground. That night, as Laura walked home through empty streets, she thought about the road ahead. It wouldn't be easy, and sacrifices would undoubtedly follow. But deep down, she believed in humanity's ability to adapt, to innovate, and to survive. If they could harness the power of unity and ingenuity, maybe just maybe they stood a chance against the Krylos. The first real encounter with the Krylos came sooner than anyone expected. It happened over the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, far from land and prying eyes. A squadron of fighter jets was on routine patrol when radar operators detected an unidentified object hovering silently above the water. At first, it looked like a trick of the equipment, just static or interference, but, as the blip grew larger, there was no denying it. This was no ordinary aircraft. Captain Ryan Mitchell led the squadron, his hand steady on the controls, as he approached the mysterious object. Through his cockpit window, he could see it clearly, now a sleek, metallic ship shaped like a teardrop, glowing faintly with an eerie blue light. It was enormous, dwarfing his jet by comparison. "Command, this is Mitchell," he said into his radio. "We've got visual confirmation. This thing is definitely not one of ours." Back at the command center, General Samuel Hayes listened intently. His face was tense, but he kept his voice calm. "Proceed with caution, Captain. Attempt communication first." Ryan nodded to himself, even though no one could see him. He switched frequencies and broadcasted a standard greeting in multiple languages, hoping the Krylos would respond. But the alien ship remained silent, unmoving. Minutes ticked by, and frustration began to creep in. "Still no response," Ryan reported. "Ordis." Hayes hesitated. Protocol dictated attempts at peaceful contact, but time was running out. If the Krylos had hostile intentions, waiting too long could be disastrous. "Fire a warning shot," he ordered. "Finally. Let's see if that gets their attention." Ryan obeyed, guiding his jet into position. With a flick of a switch, a missile streaked toward the alien vessel, exploding harmlessly against its shimmering surface. The explosion lit up the night sky, but the ship didn't flinch. Instead, it pulsed brighter for a moment, almost as if mocking them. Then, without warning, the Krylos retaliated. A beam of searing energy lashed out from the ship, striking one of the jets with pinpoint accuracy. The aircraft erupted in flames, spiraling down into the ocean below. Panic rippled through the squadron. "Break formation," Ryan shouted, diving sharply to avoid another blast. His teammates scattered, but the alien ship tracked their movements effortlessly, picking them off one by one. Within seconds, half the squadron was gone. Smoke filled the air, and the survivors struggled to regroup. "Command, we're under attack," Ryan yelled, his voice tight with urgency. "Request immediate backup." Hayes clenched his fists, watching helplessly as the situation unraveled. Reinforcements were hours away, and these pilots wouldn't last that long. "Fall back," he ordered grimly. "Save what you can." Ryan gritted his teeth, hating the idea of retreat, but he knew better than to argue. "Roger that," he replied, banking hard to the east. The remaining jets followed, weaving wildly to evade the relentless beams chasing them. One by one, they managed to break free of the Krylos range, though not unscathed. By the time they reached safety, only 3 jets remained. News of the skirmish spread quickly. Footage captured by onboard cameras made its way to media outlets, showing the world the terrifying power of the Krylos. Social media erupted with fear and outrage. Protesters who had once questioned President Collins' decision now demanded answers and action. Families of the fallen mourned their losses, while military leaders scrambled to adjust their strategies. That evening, Andrew Collins addressed the nation once again. Standing behind a podium in the White House briefing room, he spoke with quiet resolve. "Today, we witnessed the true nature of the Krylos," he said, his voice carrying both grief and determination. "They showed us they are not here to coexist. They are here to dominate. But let me make one thing clear. Humanity will not bow to tyranny. We will defend our home, no matter the cost." As the speech ended, people around the globe watched silently, their hearts heavy, yet resolute. The war had begun not with declarations or formalities, but with fire and loss. And though the road ahead seemed impossibly dark, one truth burned brightly in everyone's minds: humanity would fight for their planet, for their freedom, and for the future they refused to surrender. Laura Bennett arrived in Geneva with a heavy heart, but a clear mission. The world was watching, and humanity's survival depended on uniting nations that had long been divided. She walked into the grand conference hall where representatives from dozens of countries were gathered, their faces reflecting a mix of fear, skepticism, and determination. The room buzzed with whispered conversations as delegates exchanged theories about what might come next. Taking her place at the podium, Laura scanned the crowd. Her voice was steady as she began to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, we stand on the brink of something unprecedented. The Krylos have made their intentions clear. They see us as nothing more than obstacles to their plans. If we do not act now, we risk losing everything: our planet, our freedom, and our future. She paused, letting her words sink in. Some nodded in agreement, while others crossed their arms, unconvinced. Laura knew she had to appeal not just to their sense of duty, but to their shared humanity. We cannot face this threat alone. No single nation has the resources or strength to stand against the Krylos, but together, we have a chance. Her gaze landed on the Russian delegate, Viktor Ivanov, who had always been critical of American leadership. His expression was unreadable, but Laura pressed on. We need your help. Not out of loyalty to any one country, but because this fight belongs to all of us. Earth is our home, and it's worth protecting. To her surprise, Victor leaned forward, his tone cautious but thoughtful. You ask for unity, yet trust between nations has been broken time and again. Why should we believe this will be different? Laura took a deep breath, because failure isn't an option. If we let distrust divide us, the Krylos win. Is that what we want, to hand over our fate without even trying? Her words struck a chord. Slowly, other delegates began to speak up, sharing their concerns and ideas. A Chinese representative named Mei Ling proposed pooling intelligence networks to track Krylos movements. An Indian official suggested coordinating cyber defenses to prevent alien interference in global systems. By the end of the meeting, a fragile alliance had formed the Global Defense Initiative, GDI, back in the United States. Engineers worked around the clock under Dr. Emily Grant's guidance. They had already begun reverse engineering technology, adapting it for human use. In a sprawling lab filled with humming machines and glowing screens, Emily stood beside her team, pointing out key components of an alien weapon they'd dismantled. This energy core is what powers their ships, she explained to a young technician named Alex. If we can replicate its design, we might level the playing field. Alex nodded eagerly, jotting notes as he studied the intricate device. Despite the pressure, there was a spark of excitement in the air. Every breakthrough brought them closer to giving humanity a fighting chance. Meanwhile, General Samuel Hayes reviewed updates from military units, preparing for deployment. Soldiers trained tirelessly, learning to operate newly modified vehicles, equipped with hybrid technology. Pilots practiced dogfighting maneuvers tailored to counter Krylos tactics. Morale was low in some areas, but Hayes reminded them why they fought. This isn't just about winning battles, he told a group of recruits during a visit. It's about proving that we won't back down, that we're stronger when we stand together. As days turned into weeks, progress became visible. New weapons rolled off assembly lines. Orbital satellites, armed with experimental plasma cannons, moved into position, and joint exercises between allied forces grew more coordinated. Humanity was far from ready, but for the first time, there was hope, a fragile, flickering light in the darkness. President Andrew Collins watched these developments closely, knowing the stakes remained high. Yet, as he looked out over Washington, D.C., he felt a glimmer of pride. Nations once divided were now working side by side, driven by a common purpose. The road ahead would be fraught with danger. But one truth was undeniable. Humanity had chosen to fight not just for survival, but for the right to determine its own destiny. And sometimes, that choice was enough to change the course of history.